Greetings everyone, my name is Alexander, also known as Sandrievits. In this video I will going to show you in a more detailed fashion my opinion towards Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, including the stuff that I liked about this game, things that I did not like, and other elements which I can refer to as mixed impressions. You should keep in mind that I do not hate this game, and this is not my attempt at bashing it. On the contrary, I will still recommend this game to other people, at least giving it a shot, because it has great moments and some good features. Before moving to the discussion, I would like to tell you that this is just my subjective opinion, and you are free to disagree with it, if you do not like it. I'm not insisting on anything. My goal is to simply share my thoughts, and that's it. With that said, let me start discussing various features of this game. I decided to get things started with negative things first. Believe it or not, the number of negative features that I'm going to tell you about is not huge. However, they are playing a vital role in this game mechanic, which means that whether you like it or not, you will be forced to deal with them from the very beginning of the game all the way to its end. Number 1. Your protagonist will hit most of the human-like enemies with weapons on block 90% of the time. This is a major gripe that I have with this game when I was playing through it. You see, clashing weapons is a common thing in video games, in real life, in movies, etc. However, the way how it's implemented in Sekiro does not make any sense for me. On the basic level, Sekiro combat in terms of offense boils down to light attacks and charge thrust. I'm not mentioning death blow mechanic because I will talk about it later. The problem is that a lot of enemies will simply block your light attacks no matter from what angle you approach them. Sure, you will have an opening to strike them, but only for a couple of hits. I'm not joking, this game gives you only a couple of hits as a way of rewarding the player and letting you hit your enemies. In the grand scheme of things, those couple of hits means absolutely nothing for some enemies and for all bosses, because they are either have a giant health bar or posture bar or both. You might be thinking to yourself, well, I have a charged thrust attack, surely this means I can break through enemies' defense with it and ignore the fact that they are holding block. You thought wrong. Charged thrust attacks are not only useless because most of your adversaries with weapons will block them, they are also becoming dangerous against certain enemies due to the fact that you can get parried pretty easily, which will result in severe health loss or certain death. This all means that you will be forced to attack on block if you are locked in combat with an enemy most of the time to reduce their posture or health. There are some exceptions to this rule, like stealth mechanic, prosthetics, combat arts and some consumables, but I will mention them later. I do not understand this at all. Why in the love of God a ninja does not know how to exploit weak spots of his enemies? I had an example of fighting with a lone shadow swordsman boss, and when he charges one of his unblockable attacks performed with a leg covered with light armor, my protagonist is forced to dodge or to do Mikiri counter against it, even though he can easily chop his leg off with his unbreakable katana. You can stylishly jump and kick the enemy in the head, vault over him or stand on his weapon, but what's the point if you are not doing any significant damage? I mean, initial cutscene shows you that Ishin can exploit enemies' gaps in defense, multiple human bosses with weapons in this game doing it, but not your protagonist. Just a couple of hits is not enough for me, and the inability to avoid enemies blocking your attacks by attacking them in different body parts is a negative feature. Moving on to the next negative trait: situational usage of combat arts and prosthetic tools. Here's the thing. The only way for you to figure out which combat arts and prosthetic tools are effective always, and which among them are useful in certain situations, is by trial and error most of the time. There are some exceptions, like enemies telling you what could work against certain creatures better, but it's not the rule. This is totally fine until you get to the realization that you spent all your skill points for worthless upgrade that you will not use due to the fact that enemies can easily block this move. For example, upgraded shurikens frankly sucks. Also, it consumes such a high amount of spirit emblems that you can use it 3 to 4 times in battle until you will be out of quote-unquote gas. Guess what happens next? More basic combat of you doing tiny bits of damage and smashing against their block. There are some combat arts that does not require from you any kind of spirit emblems to use, and a good example would be Ichimonji and Ichimonji Double. This is practically your stable ability that you will use most of the time during your first playthrough, which has a purpose of not only inflicting quote-unquote great posture damage, but also removing posture damage from your protagonist and interrupting some unblockable attacks from your adversaries. I can count the instances where I was using other prosthetic tools. Let's see: Firecrackers 2 times against optional and main boss, and Flame Vent against optional boss. It happened not because I did not want to experiment, but because I felt always limited to use them due to the fact that even when you will fully upgrade your spirit emblem capacity, it's no way near enough for you to efficiently use them in battle. I would have preferred to have a different system where instead of emblems you had mana or energy, which you can recharge multiple times in battle by using some charges from your healing guard. This way I would have used them more without worrying too much about running low on resources. Same goes for high-end combat arts. On paper they sound incredible, but reality always proved me wrong. My third negative point that I have: despite upgrading your attack power, health and posture, your protagonist feels like a complete weakling. He dies from a couple of hits, and he does the minimum amount of damage to some enemies and especially bosses. You may call it balancing attempt, but I want you to think about it in a different way. Somebody actually mentioned that you only become better at this game when you are memorizing patterns of attacks, and I 100% agree with that. Those stats that you are seeing on the screen does not mean anything, not after your first defeated boss or last defeated boss. In regards to health, it will be the same as wearing no armor or jewelry in Souls games, but having a huge health pool. When it comes to attack power, I already said that it never feels that your blows becoming stronger on your first playthrough. Somebody can say, well then how about going to New Game Plus, 2 Plus, etc. to see the difference, to which I say, why do I have to go further if my damage stays the same always? I even checked myself some of the footage from New Game 2 Plus from different players. Guess what happens? It's the same minimal damage as it was before. It is another bad thing that only demotivates players to care about those stats to begin with. Fourth and final drawback among negative features for me was some of the main and optional boss placements in areas. In some cases, developers are throwing bosses straight in your face before you even walk 100 meters into new territory, without any kind of build-up or tension. Who thought that it was a good idea? I do not know. Let me give you some examples of this. Gunfort, Sunken Valley, Fountainhead Palace, Ashina Outskirts. I feel like they even dropped the ball in terms of explaining some origin story of those bosses, compared to previous From Software titles. For me, personally, when I was defeating them, I felt like I'm going through a checklist of monsters that I have to kill. I was not getting any satisfaction of killing them, and they were just an annoying obstacle that I had to overcome if I want to proceed further. The only thing that I got is some vague description of their past and prayer beads or a chance to increase my attack power. By this point you already know that the stats are pretty worthless in this game, so at least having more build-up for them would be nice, right? Well, I'm finished talking about the negative elements of this game, so I will move on to those elements that were received by me with mixed results. What do I mean by mixed results? This means that a particular element goes both into positive and negative reception. I will highlight 2 things here: story and stealth gameplay. When it comes to the story, it's a mixed bag. I was interested in different factions of this game world: Ashina Clan, Owl Shinobi and his followers, Ministry forces and some of the friendly NPCs. I tried to figure out their lore, origin, and structure backstory by speaking with various NPCs in this game, learning pieces of information from some enemies by eavesdropping on them. It was fun and interesting to do, however, the information that I got in the game was pretty limited at best and non-existent at worst. It's unfortunate because, like with all From Software games, a lot of things are left to your own interpretation, but in Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, it's presented to you as a bare minimum, which is odd. Before I decided to play this game, I thought that with cutscenes and additional dialogue choices, I will be invested into the story more. Main quest was a disappointment for me. Basically, it boils down to the formula: several factions are trying to get immortality by capturing, kidnapping divine heir. Our protagonist is trying to make this child mortal and stop others from using this kid as a tool. That's pretty much the whole story. No surprises, no sudden plot twists except for different endings, but I'm not counting them in as a positive thing. From my subjective opinion, this main story arc is the weakest of all Dark Souls games and Bloodborne. Even when they included monsters and magic, it did not feel right, something was always off. Those are the reasons why story in Sekiro is a mixture between good and bad things. Now let's talk about stealth mechanic. I remember back in the day, before I started playing this game, I thought that stealth will be an integral part of your gameplay in this game, meaning that you only had to fight against bosses or when you are being detected and there's no way for you to escape. I was thinking about stealth missions, sneaking through enemies, avoiding detection, etc. When I played through this game, this was true, but only to an extent. Yes, you can sneak around enemies to perform death blows, avoid getting spotted, stealth kill them and create a quote-unquote blood bomb to make a chain of kills afterwards. You can even go through most of the areas unnoticed, but it's just an optional thing, with which you can add more variety to your playstyle. There is just one mandatory stealth segment in the entire game, and that's it. I personally was using stealth predominantly in the Flooded Palace area, and I got through an entire area murdering everybody on my way without them noticing me. But I did that not because this game forced me to do so. Some enemies in this place are capable of reducing your health drastically when they see you, and that was my reason to perform a stealth approach. I had a lot of fun, do not get me wrong, however, in every other case, it was pretty pointless. I can tell you that if you know where to go, it's easier and less time consuming to just run past by all enemies than to sneak around them. I'm not telling you that stealth is bad, because you even have some passive and active skills that improves it. I'm just telling you that in this game it's not a mandatory thing, and I wished you had more areas with stealth implementations as well as enemies that required from you to sneak past by them or kill them while being unnoticed. Those are features that were received by me with mixed feelings. Now I'm going to talk about positive elements in Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. I'm going to mention those positive elements that left an overwhelmingly good aftertaste for me, as a person who completed all Dark Souls games and Bloodborne. I shall start with vertical gameplay. This is an integral thing that you will use not only while you are exploring the areas and looking for some secrets or hard to find items and places. You will use it to speed up your traveling, to avoid some attacks from bosses, to get around dangerous spots or avoid unnecessary fights, to get a better point of view, either for a stealth kill or to determine where you should go next. You see, in previous From Software games, you are hard stuck to the ground, and even when you get yourself to a high position, you cannot simply traverse to a place that you see from a cliff or a rooftop. Sekiro completely changes that with the addition of grappling hook. This is your go-to instrument that you will use from the moment you get it up until the end of this game. It basically turns you into Spider-Man. I will also tell you that even if you are afraid of fall damage that exists in this game, grappling hook will be a trustworthy tool for you to save your protagonist from bottomless pits. The only condition is that you can only use it on certain spots. However, there are plenty of them around and you will not miss them, because when you are getting close to them, it will start showing you the icon where you can apply your grappling hook. Overall, a great addition to this game. Another positive feature is the overall mobility of the main protagonist, which is also an integral part of the whole gameplay. He moves fast, he can vault over enemies, jump on them, double jump, grab onto the ledges while jumping, run at tremendous speed, even outrunning some bosses, etc. He can dodge pretty fast. However, dodge in this game is pretty dangerous to do, because enemies most of the time will do chains of attacks, or they will attack in an arc, making your dodge timing so tight that you will be better off just blocking or deflecting their blows. His movement and mobility feels so fluid, to the point where it can be overwhelming at first. But once you will get used to it, nothing will stop you from free roaming as fast as you want. For those who are wondering, it feels way faster than playing any type of dex builds with light or no armor in Souls games. Of course, I should mention the fact that gives him this freedom of movement, and that is the absence of stamina meter. Now, you can run, jump, climb, attack as much as you want without worrying that you will be quote-unquote out of breath. Not only that, but you can also swim and dive underwater in this game. However, do not get too excited here. There is a limited underwater combat that is present, as well as an exploration mechanic attached to it, and your character does not have to take a breath every now and then to continue swimming, but that's about it. I'm still counting it as a major plus, because we did not have such freedom of movement, fluidity and speed in previous From Software titles. More positive features that I enjoyed are general design of quote-unquote open world areas, armor and weapons, as well as some soundtracks. There are some examples when those elements are working hand in hand with each other. For instance, in a fight against Ishin the Sword Saint, the environment looks gorgeous and the soundtrack is epic. When I was exploring Fountainhead Village or Gunfort, every sightseeing was breathtaking. I think that it captures the atmosphere just right, to the point where I was not rushing through those areas, but instead I took my time to enjoy them fully. There are many more examples of this, but I think it's enough for me to say that when you get from castle-looking areas and step into the wilderness in this game, you will be amazed at how beautiful those areas are, and how it fits into the game lore and the overall design of this game. Now that I'm done talking about positive stuff, let's move on to the conclusion. All in all, everything that I have said before, including positives, negatives and mixed features, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is still a game that I recommend you to try. If not for a full playthrough, then at least for 8 to 10 hours, give it or take. By that point, you can determine whether you liked the combat, movement and story aspects by experimenting with most of the stuff, and hey, if it's fun for you, then by no means you should play further. If it will be boring or too repetitive, then you can simply drop it, no need to go on. If there's no excitement to have. For me personally, this game is slightly above average, and for those who will be asking, why didn't you play this game like you should have and not like another Souls game? I did it already. By comprehending this game mechanic, I did full blind playthrough that you can check on my YouTube channel, link to it you can find in the description. However, the combat for me was still too repetitive, with many limitations that I mentioned before. It's simply not my cup of tea. The funny thing is that I see no reason of doing New Game Plus playthrough, because I only missed one optional boss and that's it. No secret areas, no new items, just a boss that you cannot get to after a certain point in the game, if you are not reading a guide. I'm talking about Owl Father. I'm not interested in different endings or quest results. I'm looking for more gameplay, but to do another playthrough for one boss, it's not worth it. On that note, I would like to thank anyone for watching this video. Post your comments in the comment section and tell me what you liked and disliked about Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Additionally, leave a like, share this video and subscribe to this YouTube channel if you enjoyed this content and want to see more of it. If you wish to be always up to date with future projects, consider following on the social media pages, Twitter or Facebook, the choice is yours. Also, consider supporting this channel directly via donations by clicking on the Streamlabs donation link or by visiting Patreon page, where you will be awarded with different perks and bonuses. Among them are early access to edited videos, Q&A videos with your participation, behind-the-scenes stuff and much more. Your help is always appreciated and motivates to create more videos and improve visual, audio and special effect aspects. With that said, I, Alexander, also known as Andreyevitz, am wishing you good luck, stay sound, stay cheerful and healthy, and I hope to see you all in the next videos. Take care!